To create a group, I go through the Resources tab on the top of eCat. When I have selected that, I get a list of all the current groups that are there. When I click on groups, down here in this bottom section, I see the group listed and I see some choices. I can modify, I can post, but I want this little extra actions button at the side. When I click on that, you'll see I have a selection of choices. To create a group, I actually start by adding a folder. And I'll call it Example Group. I must select a home page template, otherwise there is actually no page associated with the group. There are some selections that have been created by the school. It actually doesn't matter which one you choose, because the same as with your class pages, once you're on that page you have the ability to add whichever components you want and delete components as you wish as well. So it doesn't particularly matter. I start with the default positions for that group, but you'll remember from the notes on the previous section that groups allows me to provide individual permissions as opposed to a current class page which has the settings set by groups of students or groups of teachers. I can't specify individual teachers or students to have individual permissions. And I want to do that, so I want to create a group and I add that folder. Then I'm at the state where I'm managing my group. Because I created it, I am automatically the admin person for that group. I actually can't delete myself unless I assign another admin. But I want to add some members, and this is also where I can decide on the settings for my group. So did I want it to be restricted, where it's only by me as the admin assigning you, moderated, where people will request it and then I'll approve it, which will appear in this waiting list, or free, whereas anybody who wants to join my group can join it as they wish. For most of our cases, we're looking at restricted or moderated. I'll deal with restricted for this one, so that's fine. That was already the default. If I'm changing it, I choose Submit. I want to add some members. I can just type their names, which is the way that mostly we'll be doing it. So if I type by first name, I'll have Debbie in my group. She's a teacher, and I'll have Conlon in my group. I can add as many as I wish. Again, I also had that option if I was doing moderated, where people would request to join it and I wouldn't be adding them. So if that's my list, I'm going to add those users. And so now this is where I can assign the permissions. The default is that they just have read access. Let's say that I need Debbie to have write access on this page because she needs to be able to post things and create content for the page. So I do that and we'll see that it changes her from read to write. And of course I can undo that by just choosing to click read. Again, a student can have write access, which is one of the reasons why you may choose to use a group, if you need students to be able to add things into a group, which is something they can't do on a class page. So I've got my group and everything's happy. I can check that because if I go back to my resources, back to those groups, I can see that my example group is there, and I can look at, double check what I've got there. I can go to the page and see that because I chose class page, it's set up with all of those default things, and I can change, delete whatever components I want, put whatever I want to in there. So essentially that's how I set it up. The other important thing that we need to know is how to delete our group at the end, because if we scroll through here, you can see the number of groups that are here, and it's possible that some of those aren't necessary this year, but they have not been deleted. So very important that if you're creating the group and then it's no longer needed, that you as the admin delete that group. So this is what I'll do. I have, again with the actions button, I have the option to delete the entire group. And that's the option that I'll use if I absolutely do not need that anymore. If it's a group that you're thinking you're going to be using those resources again in the future but with different group members, you can do things like disband the group. If I do that, it tells me all the members are removed but the home page content remains. So if I do that and then I go back to resources, I'm going to see that the group is still there, and if I look to see, if I look to, there's no manage the group anymore because there's no actual group there. But that still leaves that group sitting up there in that list. If I don't need it anymore, I know that I'm going to be starting new things again in the future, or I don't need that group anymore, then I'm going to choose delete. And delete gets rid of that entire group. So you can see if I clicked on it now while it's been disbanded, the page is still there. So if I had content in there, that would still remain. So if I wanted to get rid of that group entirely, which in the most cases that's really what you would do, because you would be adding, it would be totally new things if you were recreating that group a following year, you need to make sure that you come to this section and you delete. And then once I do that, we'll see that that example group is gone. So it's really important to make sure that we delete the entire page and the entire group if we don't need it. Okay, so there was our simple run through. Hopefully that is helpful for you.